who had a good sleep tonight? All right, most people. That's good. And who had a cup of coffee this morning? And who had a good sleep and had a cup of coffee? All right, we can have a look why you did it, because it's a habit, obviously, except from the caffeine addiction. But we will see how this habit was created, and we'll discuss it in a moment. My name is Nariman Aga-Tagiyev. So I found Secure Habits 2 days ago as a company. I resigned 2 days ago and started doing this full-time job. I'm helping software companies to build application security habits. So it's not only policy, but actually working with developers, influencing their behavior, and making those behaviors stick. First, I want to say something. Losers and winners both have same goals. This is a key phrase I came across in this book, which I highly recommend to read as well, Atomic Habits. It gives an example of marathon runners. All of those participants have a goal to win. Like we in AppSec all have some policies to make a secure product. We have some objective goals. And all those marathon runners also have a goal to be the first. But who wins? Those who have not the motivation that particular day. You can be very motivated to win the race, but the person with the right system who prepares it continuously wins the race. And same in AppSec. You can be very motivated, you can have a very good, you can be very influential and do a couple of things here and there, but if you don't build a habit and don't build a right system, continuous system, then we still have lots of risk. And then AppSec, I don't think the AppSec program then is successful. For this topic, I was inspired a lot last year when we had a SAMM user day, I believe in San Francisco, when Dustin made a presentation about Security Champions program, but he gave lots of details about behavior science and motivators. And that sparked my interest in this topic, and I thought, all right, so you can influence some actions from developers, but how do you build habits out of it? And he touched upon the BMAP, the Fox model, which I will recap in a moment. And also, I came across a YouTube video, again, of Dustin, which I have offline on my phone, and every time I fly recently, I just rewatch it and take notes, where he explains lots of examples how to make use of this behavioral science. Really recommend it as well. Now, I will now sprint through what Dustin taught us in San Francisco, just to have the basis of behavior science and the motivators, and then I'll add up about the habits. So what he shared with us is a Fox behavior model that if you want to achieve a behavior, and that's what you want, we put some policy, and we want people to do it. You need a motivation, so you need to find a way to motivate the people to do it. You need to have ability, so they should be able to do it, otherwise they won't, even if they're motivated. And you need to have some prompt, that something reminds them, you have an invitation for this meeting, etc. When these three come together, then behavior usually happens. And the Fox behavior model focuses a lot on the motivations part. And there is a famous map of motivations called Octalysis framework, which shows what are typical different sides of motivators that influence our behavior. And with lots of examples, I will not go to each of them because it's just a quick recap, just to spark interest, and you'll have recording of this session. But you have some epic meanings, that's a general understanding why we are doing this. You can have some more scarcity, avoidance, fear of miss out type of behavior, which you scare a person, or you tell if you don't do it now, you will not get your objectives right. These ones can be divided, looked in different perspectives. You have intrinsic half, which is rewarding in itself. This type of behavior, you don't need to give any reward, but people just want to do it because they understand the value of it, and they want to have this social influence. It means something for them. And you have extrinsic motivators, which you need to provide something. You need to scare them with something, or you need to give them something. then you have some behavior motivators sustainable and some are not sustainable. So if you just scare them or make it a limited time availability, it will work sometimes for a short period of time. It will motivate indeed. And that's used a lot in the marketing, in the advertisements. But it's short term. But if you use more the sustainable ones, like accomplishment, you show, look, we're having progress together. Look, that we are part of a big goal. We have this epic meaning. That type of motivators actually stick better. Now just to recap, and that's it about this initial Fox model. So to achieve a behavior, we need to have a motivation, desire to act. We need to have ability, ease of performing the action, and we need to have a prompt, a trigger. And if you have an activity, you expect them, developers to do an activity which is very hard to do on the left, and motivation is very low, people will not do it. So it's very hard, they don't have right motivation to do it. But if motivation is very high, they will do it anyway. And if it's impossible, but you're still triggering it, you should do it, but people cannot do it, it will also be very frustrating, because if you are very motivated but you fail to do stuff, it frustrates you, so it will also not work, all the way on the left where you see the star. But if it's very easy to do, but there is no motivation at all, and you keep giving the prompts, then those will be just perceived annoying. So you don't want to do something, but you keep receiving emails, you're just annoyed. You're still not going to do it. But everything above that line, that's where actually triggers and prompts will succeed. And finally, a couple of examples in AppSec. You can tap into motivation. You can do the gamification, secure coding, trainings, recognition stuff for the motivation. For ability, remove the difficulties, give the proper training, give the proper tools. And for the prompt, have right moment, invitations, notifications, reminders. So this is the Fox model. Now, if you repeat this behavior enough times, then the habit occurs. And how do we build a habit out of this behavior? I want to use Charles Duhigg's habit loop to explain you this. Imagine you enter a dark room. First, you have a cue. That's observations. A cue is what you see, what you observe. And you see it's a dark room. You feel uncomfortable because you want maybe to walk in to grab something, but you don't know where to go. So that's puts you in an uncomfortable zone, and you have a craving. You have a craving for the clarity. You have a craving to see something in front of you. And when you feel this uncomfortable feeling and craving, you do an action. That's your response to the situation. That is third step. And when you do this action, you put on the light in the room. Suddenly you see that you solve the problem. Just solving a problem already a motivator by itself. It's immediate motivator, giving you some dopamine. Oh, now I solved my problem, my craving, and that's the moment where actually makes you happy. And if you keep repeating this 2, 3, 4 times, next time you enter the room and you just observe the situation, before you feel the uncomfortable, before you have the craving, you immediately do the action. And you will not get the reward because it was anyway expected that you will get the light in, but every time you recognize the situation, you just do it anyway. And that's what we are trying to do in the AppSec program. So I would first make sure to have to create right craving, to make it a bit uncomfortable, to make it very obvious that they see dashboard, they see issues not fixed, and call out the names, to make it uncomfortable and make it very obvious, and make them do it. But of course, I need to make it very simple and easy, like in the previous model. I will make everything available for those people, and I will make sure to have a reward that will kick in right away in the end of this cycle that will strengthen this habit. And after some loops, next time when the person sees that dashboard and see that issue, they will just want to do it, the action, without even getting any reward. I will not maybe send email to congratulate them, but just that habit already and the feeling of that you potentially will get a reward that is already giving you excitement and dopamine. It's like when you're going for a hunt, if you just the feeling that you will get something also can make you happy, that excitement. And here, we're going to make use of it. So a couple of examples about the coffee. That's why I asked you, did you have a good sleep today? And did you get a coffee today? So imagine you are walking into a meeting, you are in office, and you didn't sleep well. So you actually feel tired. But you crave to feel more alert. You're worried, you're going to explain, you're going to present something. That's your craving. So what you do, you drink a cup of coffee. That's your response. And you feel more alert and you feel more relaxed. Now you know, like, okay, I did a good job, that I got achievement. I got my coffee, a small success of the day. You went in the meeting room. Or you're making a project and you hit a roadblock. And you feel stuck, you feel frustrated. What do? Maybe pull out your phone and check some social media and forget the situation. Maybe get your thoughts away from the problem. And you feel a bit better, and that also makes you a bit more happy. And if you do it again and again and again, well, because at the last step, when you made happy, your brain is happy, it got you its dopamine. But next time, when the situation occurs after many recurrence, your brain already has expectation. Oh, actually, I see the same situation. Last time I got happy, so the brain already starts to get excited, and again, dopamine starts to hit. So you don't get any cravings. Actually, you had a good sleep. You don't have a problem, but you are walking into a meeting. So you are rested, but you're walking into a meeting, and you immediately make a response. You drop by to the coffee machine. You get your coffee because you have a habit of drinking coffee before meeting. But you didn't have a craving, so there was no problem of sleepiness at all. And there is no reward, because now you had this feeling just of excitement of that potentially you will get a reward. So that your brain is already happy with it anyway. So with the AppSec policies that you have, if in the beginning you do enough time rewards, at some point, just without rewards, people will keep repeating the same stuff just because their brain thinks they will get a reward. Just that excitement of seeing, recognizing a cue, recognizing a situation, and immediately just acting on this. That's the basic. Any questions so far? Does it make sense a bit? Right. Yeah, sure. I will repeat the question.
I had a bit of a question.
Yeah.
Because you were mentioning, for example, that the habit with the dark room, right, where you turn on the light.
Yeah.
Sorry. So the habit with the dark room where you turn on the light.
Mm-hmm.
But then even I understand your point that after a while you immediately just turn on the light, so you don't have that uncomfortable feeling, and then you get the response. So you immediately do the response, but you do still in that scenario you get the reward because you get that the light goes on, which is like the reward.
Yes.
What I struggle to understand a bit is if in your scenario with the AppSec, where at the beginning you give the reward, eventually you take it away, won't that also eventually lead to people stopping the habit because they recognize after sometimes they're not gonna get any reward for doing this, so why would they continue to do it? You know what I mean?
Yes, it's a great question, which I wanted to give this remark as well. Interestingly, when your brain expects a reward, it's expected that lights will go on when you push it.
Yes.
It will not create a dopamine because it's not something, oh, wow, actually I solved the problem. You knew you will solve it. There was expectation. So you don't get any dopamine there. But you still keep doing it. But with the rewards, you remember you had this intrinsic and extrinsic. The intrinsic that you believe and it's rewarding in itself, you just want to do it. So those type of motivators, you will do it anyway. You'll keep doing it. But for extrinsic, when you provide a free pizza every time they fix a problem, and if that is a habit based on that extrinsic reward, when you take away this pizza, that is a negative reward. So suddenly, hey, I was keep doing this habit and this pattern, and suddenly there is no pizza anymore when we fix this, when we do this day of cleaning up bugs. And that feels like negative reward, and that actually degrades your habit indeed. So it can happen when you stop with the reward, especially if it's extrinsic, if it's like financial, if it's like with a pizza, etc. So those need to be used careful and occasionally, especially when you do the craving part. Like,
yeah, okay.
Right?
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, how do we create a good habit? All these answers, you already know them. I'll just bring in what is obvious today, just to make you think together with me. The habit loop. So you see a cue, you feel a craving to solve a problem, you want to make a response, and you get a reward. You need to keep repeating it for some time to create this habit. You need to make each of these steps stronger. For the cue, what you observe, you need to make it very obvious. So the metrics, the dashboards, the emails, the checklists, you need to make sure they are very clear and everybody knows what to do. For the craving, you need to make it very uncomfortable, or you need to make them want to do this stuff. So you should make it really attractive. You need to think about how I make the craving attractive, how I make this policy or this activity attractive. You need to find a way to cheat the system for time being until we build the habit. And for the response, we want them to act on this. We need to make it very easy. And finally, we should have instant reward. Of course, there are many types of reward, and that's a bit conflicting. Maybe you think attractive and satisfying sounds a bit similar, right? But when I talk about satisfying, how do you get immediately kick in of dopamine? Do you send, they fix the problem, send the email, oh great, you did it very well. Especially in the beginning while building the habits, you need to give this immediate reward right after the thing was done. And that actually what creates a habit. First 3 steps, these are the steps that will make the action, the behavior. And the last step, which is making it a concrete and closes the loop and builds a habit out of it. And if you want to break a habit, because previous list was you want to create a habit, you want to make it very obvious. Now let's say you want to break a habit. Perhaps some people do threat modeling and they don't follow up on assumptions afterwards. You wrote down some assumptions in threat modeling session and you didn't follow up, and we never follow up. That's our bad habit. How do you break it? Maybe you should make it invisible. Like if you are merging a code with vulnerabilities to main branch, you make it invisible that then if a branch has vulnerability, just don't show it in pull request. And so people don't have this observation and they just don't act on that. You make it very unattractive. You need to think how I do this behavior unattractive. Maybe make it very clear that you call out the names of people, or you call out the who doing not right, or reminders, uncomfortable ones. You should make it very difficult. So the person should go out of normal path to make it happen. So if, I remember one example with elevators. If everyone just takes elevator to the ground floor in a company, and if you think it's a bad habit and you want people to walk, just make them wait longer to go down, and people will start walking. Like if you change the elevator software to wait for 10 seconds, 30 seconds before calling, and that will create that motivation to stop the habit of taking elevator, because you make it more difficult. And you make it unsatisfying. So if they do the bad habit, how do you make sure they immediately have this trigger, hey, you did this, but actually that's not how we are doing this in this company. And actually our senior developers doing it a bit differently, and we're doing it that way, not this way. So how do you make it immediately unsatisfying? And you keep repeating this, next time, even they will just not do it at all. Okay, let's try to apply. I will give some examples in AppSec domain. How do we start? I would always start from doing some assessment, obviously, right? Because we want to improve the maturity. First, I would do assessment of a selected scope, just to see the big picture what we have. Then I would define the target scores, because the goal is not to make 3.0 on all activities. I would define what is actually goal per activity. If I'm doing on-premise software, perhaps the operations part is not so relevant, etc. So I would define the targets, target scores, which Dag explained it very well in some of previous user days. But then next, I would actually do roadmap still. So the setting the targets is not replacing the roadmap tab of our Excel toolbox, because you cannot address all of those targets in one go. You have to do prioritization and divide into phases. Now, I picked activities to implement based on my priorities, based on my targets and assessments so far. Now I have one activity, and let's say this activity to cover third-party component security, SCA. That's my priority for this quarter, for this year. And I want to improve this activity in organization. What I'm doing next, So this is the new part, right? So the previous ones you would know what to do. First, I would write down what are the habits that I observe in organization for this activity. We are talking about third-party component security. For example, when new repos, some good habits are created, new repos are created, we need to make sure that they are added to SCA tool for continuous scanning. And if you have one, if you're only using one GitHub instance, it's easy. In our organization, we have many different instances, so we need to make sure that when a new project is created, it's added for SCA for scanning. And that is a good habit. Maybe you do it partially, but maybe you just want to create it still. So I'm putting a mark next to it. That is a good one. So I need to make it obvious. I need to make it easy, etc. And then I also try to identify what are the bad habits going on. For example, a code merged into main branch without resolving third-party components vulnerabilities. This is a bad habit also related to the same area, to the third-party component security. And I will have like 5, 6 habits that I want to create and that I want to break. And sometimes I have some habits that I observe, but they're neutral. They're neither good nor bad, but I also would write them down if I see something occurring, because I will use them for habit stacking. I'll say, oh, they always go to make a team meeting before this SCA checking. Let me try to put a rule right before, right after. Then it's easy to know exactly when to do it. So that's called habit stacking. I would write them as well. Now, I will give a couple of examples, but the first law is to make it obvious. And ask yourself the question, I'm making this activity, how I can make it obvious, the situation in this activity. These are examples, but you don't have to do the same. But in the book, Atom Habits, but also in that model, it gives you 4 different examples. So first, make sure you have a habit scorecard and write down what's occurring habits and just become aware of them. Just if we are talking about number of repos that is not covered by SCA, make assessment, make a scorecard, how many of them are added, how often not added, etc. Make some implementation intentions, like when you're going to do it, who is going to do it, how, after what, before what. Write it down as well. These are our particular policies. Use habit stacking, so before, after, connected to existing habits. And design your environment so the cues have good habits are obvious and visible, so you see exactly. Here are more concrete examples for the AppSec. We want to make it obvious. We are filling out the scorecard, so we identify how often we do it. Maybe we review the last 10 repositories and see if they're covered or not, and outcome is we're creating the awareness of the current triggers and gaps. So just that starting point is to make it obvious. Good step. Then, use implementation intentions, as I said, the policies. But we can write down, okay, we're going to add a policy, every new repository added to GitHub, we're going to make sure to have a configuration for SCA. And you can have checklists next to your code. You can have some onboarding documents for new projects. And you can have it in internal playbooks of teams, but make it clear, make it visible so developers see exactly what they need to do when they start this activity. That's make it obvious. Another example, say use habit stacking. Every time a new repo is created, maybe have a trigger to immediately add a new task somewhere. So somehow what is anyway being done, creating a new repo is anyway being done. They have to do it if they want to start project. Do action right after this or right before this. So it's clear when to do it for people. And design your environment about it. So what visual cues you can do? Maybe you can have in your repository list some visual logos of those that are covered by SCA or not. Maybe have some dashboards. And perhaps you can adapt your environment to make pre-configured GitHub actions or SCA configuration file. So everything you can do to make it just more obvious and automatic. And just social cues. Once in a while, you can also announce it at a team meeting. Okay, this is the coverage. These projects are covered with SCA. These projects are not. So again, make it visible. That is the first step of that 4-step loop to create a habit. And I can imagine it's all obvious, right? Nothing new for you. But having the structure, like we put in SAMM as a structure to do the maturity assessment, you need to have a structure around the building habit as well. Now, moving to the second part of building habit, you want to make it attractive. Here are a couple of examples that you can have a temptation bundling, attaching what they want to do anyway with what you want them to do. You can create some sort of culture, make a peer pressure that in this company, the developers doing it this way, or we as an organization, that's how we operate. And you feel part of that community, maybe a part of Security Champions, and you need to understand how that culture works and make it communicated clearly with people so they feel like they want to adapt and be part of the community. You can use this behavior factor to influence people as well. And you can create some rituals. So if you have a ritual to go all together for lunch on Thursdays, you can extend this ritual to also do this activity, to check third-party components vulnerabilities before the lunch, after lunch. So when people think of that positive thing, they do it as well. Temptation bundling. I give it this example, but after adding the repo, if you have some announcement on a channel that, hey, we're creating a new project, you don't announce it before you do the SCA configuration, for example. So if that call-out name is something positive for them, you can make a prerequisite that first you need to do this, and then you feel this is a good announcement. Or if you have something fancy, like you can say, if you want to use a GraphQL query, if you want to implement this sort of tool, you want to adopt this fancy GitHub Copilot AI tool, if you try it out, first you need to make sure that your repo is integrated to SCA. So that's something they're curious, they want to try out, but you make a rule, so only teams who have a secure practice in place can try out new things. So you're kind of using what they want and attaching what you want them to do. Join the culture. So here, I gave a rough example. That's how we're doing stuff here, and in the bi-weekly demos, you just make it very clear that our culture is to do this stuff this way and to use a social factor. And about the rituals, as I said, if you have a daily stand-ups, maybe we take 10 minutes to handle project hygiene, so like make it a part of the recurring event. And make it visible. So so you announce it, you make everyone aware. The third part is about making it visible, and by design, I have a short list here, so you can we can download the presentation afterwards and use it. But after this slide, for each of them, I give a list of concrete examples for each of them related to AppSec. How do you make it easy? You reduce the friction of this activity. You make it very simple. Maybe you write a script for them to trigger and do it automatically. Make a one-click button. You prepare the environment for future actions to be easier. Like if something you want to recur, if every morning you want to go to gym, maybe prepare a bag, put it at the door, or if you want to drink water as first thing, put the glass on the table. So you're preparing it in advance to make it easier. But when you're there, you just grab it and go, or grab it and drink it. Same with the development. You can prepare some initialization scripts, so when you create a repo, stuff already, and you have an empty checklist, just to put a mark. Master the decisive moment. You need to define exactly when you need to take a decision to do this. And I will give you examples in a moment. 2-minute rule. Make the habit, these activities sound so simple that people want to do it, and make it look like it's just a 1-minute thing. For example, you want them to do threat modeling. Tell them to schedule a meeting with architect every time they start a project. If that is a habit, they will feel like it's just 1-minute work, right? You schedule a meeting with architect, and you pretend that that's a habit. But actually, that habit can trigger a 2-day work afterwards. But if you just make sure that everything you promote as a habit is sounds small, and what you try to trigger in the policy, schedule a meeting only, then people tend to do that first action. It sounds very easy. They tend to do it. But actually the work comes afterwards. It's like I subscribed for this conference to speak. It was easy. I just filled in the form. Took me a couple of minutes, but then I spent whole weekend preparing, right? But when I did it, it sounded very easy. If I knew it, how much work it is, probably you will not want to do it. And that's the same with policies. Just make some ask for commitment that will like make them sign in, and the work will come afterwards. Once they're in, they will do it anyway. And automate your habits. Invest in technology to make it easier, etc. So I guess it's clear. Some examples. I walk through most of them. So decrease the number of steps. Maybe you can provide one-click setup script. You can link registration to direct form, and you have some pre-filled fields for the SCA registration. For the environment as well, like having some YAML files, some templates, just to copy it over, make it makes the environment ready for this activity. Integration with your development environment. Master the decisive moment. And here the goal is to optimize the small choices to deliver outsized impact. So you need to identify the moment when it's the best for this activity to happen. And in this case, maybe when you're creating the new project. So you need to think and write down what is the best moment for this activity habit to happen, and then you will decide how you're going to trigger it. For example, here they gave example that they have a GitHub hook, web hook, that notifies them every time a repo is created, so because that's the moment when you want them to do it. Very obvious stuff. 2 minutes rule, that's the cheating, right? That you make them look small, but you define habit as something small, but it can trigger more work afterwards, but it works. And automation, that you have some tools around it, you try to make it as easy as possible if you want to make that habit happen. And now, up to here, all these habits would trigger people to act, to do it, but the last one is what actually will make it stick, making it satisfying. Reinforcement. Let me just jump directly to the examples, and we'll look what we have here. Using reinforcement. So how do you, when the habit is done, because it's the last step, so they already did the action, how do you make them feel good right away, instantly? Maybe you celebrate success setup with a badge or emoji in a README file. Automatically add something to the README file of this project. Hey, this project has SCA covered. Maybe you can have a Slack in the channel. Look, that person just configured the SCA. You can have some team leaderboards, and we can have a positive feedback, perhaps in the comments somewhere in a pull request. And the brains like instant rewards because that's what creates your dopamine. If you don't expect it, if you expected it, that doesn't work so much. Then make doing nothing enjoyable. So if person doesn't do a bad habit and operate normally and anyway doing what is expected, still it's good to mention it, call out, look, we always edit repos to SCA, software composition analysis tool, for identifying third-party components. And look, we did this habit, so you didn't do anything wrong, but because of it, look, we don't have any issues reported or last certain number of days. And just send sometimes email, look, we are doing great, and we didn't have any vulnerabilities or any incidents this year. So that also makes your habit stronger and feels better because you didn't expect this nice gesture and you received it. And you didn't do anything for that. You were doing what you anyway learned to do. Habit tracker. Use a habit tracker. One of the biggest motivators, or actually positive motivators, is to feel accomplishment. Like when we make a big puzzle at home and we finally put the last piece in it, that gives you like a happiness. Oh, I feel I made it. You take a photo, you show it to your family, because that gives a nice kick in temporary, and that works very well to give you pleasure in the end. So if you have some dashboards, and when the person did something good, put a tick there. Look, this is done, and your team score suddenly went up. You got it better. And if you did something bad, immediately let them know it went down, our score. Or just have like a badge somewhere to show it visible. But you got the point though. And never miss twice. Even if a person does it, doesn't do that day. Like, for example, I'm using Duolingo to learn a language these days. If I miss a day, I have a habit to do it every day, but if I miss, it will say, hey, you didn't do it yesterday. Do you need any help? Like, why don't you do it? Let's do it again. And if I notice that a developer didn't integrate their branch to SCA tool, that's fine, but you should never do the same mistake twice. So immediately I need to catch it and tell them, I noticed you didn't do that. Are you very busy? Can I help you with anything? It's not necessary to punish, but to tell them that you see that. And that will put them in an uncomfortable situation, and they will see that you actually care and that they're not doing this stuff for nothing. So next time, that habit will be even stronger. So they will not make you come to them again. So don't make this twice. So don't let them do this mistake twice. When you see it happens once, that they didn't follow the habit, follow up and try to help them. And the bonus one, just combine it with visibility. At the team meetings, all hands calls, like, look, we have this habit, and this is the coverage. We have so many repos, and 70% of them are covered with SCA, and this one are almost there, and these teams are working on this. Just also gives a nice pleasure. Now, a few examples how to break a habit, and this is basically the reverse. Everything what I said so far, you do it other way around. So I'm not going to give example for each of the steps, but make it obvious. How do you reverse it? You reduce the exposure. You remove the cues what they observe. If I'm walking every day to office and I pass by a bakery and I smell of this pastry, I walk in, I eat, and day after day, again and again. Next time I smell it, even if I'm not hungry, I want to walk in and get it, right? And that became a habit. But if I want to make it not obvious, choose another street to walk this time, and suddenly you don't get this exposure to this cue, and the habit will not happen. And with AppSec, you all can be creative. Like, if you recognize a bad pattern, a bad habit, probably people, when they do this action, something happens beforehand. So there is some cue. People just don't do actions out of nowhere. They observe something and they do something bad you don't want to do. How do you make that thing, cue, invisible? How do you prevent them? Make it unattractive for the second part instead of making attractive. How do you refrain it? So maybe you mention more that what we are doing is actually not cool. We shouldn't be doing that. Or make a dashboard showing the least performant teams, that nobody wants to be at the bottom. Everybody wants to be at the top. You have to be creative. How do you spread this message that that particular activity is unattractive? Make it difficult. If people tend to merge their branch to main without doing the security checks, perhaps you put some policies, some automatic controls that it's just not possible, and it needs to be validated by someone first, and only that person can accept that pull request after checking for security. So you make it very difficult to do that bad habit as it is. And make it unsatisfying. So you could have accountability partners. So if you're just building, if somebody is responsible for this activity, so somebody is responsible to schedule threat modeling meetings, if that's me, I can ask project manager, or can you please verify or check once a month that every project that happens, I did this work. I did scheduling the threat modeling meeting. At least I did assessment to check if it was critical enough to do threat modeling or not. So I have accountability partner. And this way it will make it unattractive for me not to do it, because I know it's not only me, people will notice it. But also in any other activities that you see being done, make sure it's visible, make sure people notice it or put it in dashboards, etc. And create a habit contract. So if it's one trick, you can have some, in some companies, if you break the build, so next day you have to be the one fixing it, for example, or you get a drink for everyone next day. So you can have some contracts, but you need to first have the contract is an agreement, the negative agreement that people accept first. We agree all together. So if one of us pick up the phone at the dinner from our girlfriend, that person is going to pay. And you agree on that at the beginning of the dinner, and that is a contract for that particular activity, that particular day. And you can try to adapt it also in AppSec. You can write it part of your policy, because for every activity, probably you're writing white paper, you write a policy that this activity will be done this way at this moment, and this is how we're going to do it, and this how we're going to control it, how we're going to monitor it, and if it's not followed, this is how we're going to punish it, and make people agree to this. It's difficult to build habits and get the budget time for that, and it's lots of activities, because it's easier sometimes just to let's write a white paper and document and make a policy and make it. But if you want to build habits, it actually takes time to build it up, and good habits cost time in the present today, but the bad habits cost a lot in the future. So you need to be aware of that. If you keep doing something bad or you're not doing those good habits, in the long run, it will cost much more, obviously. Now, one takeaway that I want to give you, and coming back now, returning from this behavior science topic to SAMM, when you do assessment, probably you have some action plan. You have a project to do the improvement. And what I do is I have the visible plan, which is my white paper policies, what I publish, make an announcing to everyone, so this is how we're doing stuff, or this is when. And I have invisible evil plan. Not everybody needs to know it, how I do it. But I want to use some tricks, how I'm going to build a habit. And for every activity that I have a policy, I would write down how I make it obvious in different ways. It doesn't have to be part of the white paper of official policy, but in my project checklist, at the flow of my work, I will have this one main task, make it obvious. I want to build this SCA, third-party component security project, how I make it obvious so that I build this habit. Then how I make it uncomfortable for them, how I make them want it, like uncomfortable or like something they want, and I will write it down. So like I would think from behavior science side, perhaps I can announce it here and there, because maybe I can make speeches or like just mention it occasionally, or ask managers to have stakeholders to support me, have a right buy-in and announced by them. So people want to look nice to their managers and do it afterwards. So I can have all these tricks. You don't have to write it in the policy, such things. And then for the action, how do I make it easy? Like if I need to have some automation, that part doesn't need to be in the policy as well. But I can have some meetings and some actions, talk with DevOps team, ask them how you can help me to make it as easy as possible. This is the behavior I want to achieve, how I make it as easy as possible, and I will make some tasks in my project plan to make sure to take care of that. And lastly, what instant rewards I will give until the habit is built up. I will also think about it, and I will not write it in the policy, I will have a pizza, or I will mention somebody's name because he did a good job, because I don't want them to feel that it was extrinsic motivator. I want to feel, oh, like, oh, I'm recognized, we are part of this big, epic, meaningful goal. But that's the secret, the invisible part, the evil plan that I will have as my work. I can share it with the AppSec team, but not necessarily globally. And the visible part, of course, white paper, documentation, announcements, all this stuff. And just to recap, so like make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. This will be part of the invisible document I would have, the evil plan. And if I want to build a good habit, and if I want to break a bad habit, I will think, how can I make it invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying? That was my presentation, and I would like to open the floor for your thoughts, because it's not our domain of expertise, of course, and not mine as well. I learned it recently, last year, after I got interest from Dustin's presentation. But I wonder how this can be applicable in our maturity program. What do you think?